As Paul mentioned, I am the VP of Products at rewardStyle, parent company for Like to Know It. And when I first started in this space, I was not exactly sure whether I was fit for influencer marketing. A bald guy in his 40s with 2 kids, I wasn't sure whether that was a space for me. But as I started to look at it more in depth and start to understand what was really happening there, I realized that it was very much human nature to seek out influence. I want to introduce you to somebody. This is Greg Webb. When I started my first job, 22-year-old, I actually had hair then, a lot more interesting time period for me. Greg was our head of sales and marketing at the company that I worked for. And Greg was the coolest guy I knew. He stayed at all the best hotels. He knew all the great restaurants to go to. He was a top-tier loyalty member at all the best airlines. And he wore these shirts, you know, the shirts that have like the cuffs underneath, like a different pattern underneath? That was Greg. And when I first started, I really wanted to represent our brand in the right way of our company. And so I looked to Greg. And I wanted to stay where he stayed, and I wanted to eat where he ate. And when I had my first customer dinner in Sydney, Australia, guess who I called to ask where I should take the clients? It was Greg. We all have a Greg. Someone you look to who you maybe feel is just slightly cooler than you are. Greg had all these amazing statues and these trips from the Super 12, rugby here, the Qantas pieces. I want you, for the rest of this presentation, when I talk about influencers and influence, I want you to find that person for you and think about who that is. And use that as your example through the rest of the time period. Who is it that you look to help make buying decisions? Because really, the truth is, that's how we make buying decisions. This data here shows 81% of people said that recommendations are how they make buying decisions. You move a little bit further down this graph and you see 50% are from online reviews by somebody you don't know in real life. So what's the difference between recommendations and reviews, right? Recommendations know you. They have a sense of what you like. They have data about you. They understand who you are, whereas reviews are just a little bit more blanket. And so what happens is that recommendations are really from a trusted source. And 88% of consumers trust online recommendations as much as personal recommendations. This is what's happening in this space. Things are changing. People are starting to trust these online sources that they may not even know. In fact, 70% of millennials favored non-celebrity endorsements, mainly from influencers that they consider peers, but that they don't know. So what's happening is that we are learning to trust these online sources as if they are peers of ours. And the recommendations that come from those are just as powerful as the personal recommendations that Greg made to me. At the same time, we're learning how to scale this. And advertising is evolving as well alongside of this, because companies like Facebook and Instagram, Twitter, etc., have all found ways to capture more personal data that we can leverage inside the advertising space to take advantage of this. And so this is just taken off. This is the latest Kleiner-Perkins study. If you haven't read it, I would highly recommend you sit down with the 240 pages and go through it. But advertising spend has dramatically evolved and shifted to these places where we can get data about people. And then what we've done is we've taken those recommendations and that started to scale. We've moved into that ability to leverage online data to create personality and recommendations around that. And then we've put the call to action right next to it by shifting all of our transactions to online sources. And e-commerce has just continued to grow. I keep seeing this chart each year they release it, and I felt like maybe this year that the growth rate would start to stall a little bit, but it is not. Just when it feels like you buy everything at Amazon, it actually just continues to grow. And so this is happening all at the same time, these 3 trends. We're scaling recommendations, advertising spend is shifting, and where we buy is continuing to move online. And this has created a really exciting moment for those of us in the space in influencer marketing. This has been a really exciting time. 86% of marketers used influencer marketing in 2017. This was of a study done with retail, CPG, food and beverage, media. And 93% of marketers who reported testing influencer marketing said that it performed as well or better than traditional forms of marketing. So this has been a really exciting time and an exciting time for my company, rewardStyle, the parent company of Like to Know It. We're a startup about 6 years ago. My co-founders, Amber and Baxter Box, live in Dallas. They're now married. Our founder story is kind of an interesting one. Amber was a personal shopper in Dallas and would take her clients to Neiman Marcus. And I don't know if you know this or not, but if you are a personal shopper and you go there and your client purchases goods from Neiman Marcus, they will pay you the same commission that they would have paid their sales agent. And so this is what Amber was doing. She decided then to start a blog. And this was back, 2010, 2011. And she would make recommendations on the blog. Check out this purse, check out this bag. And she would find clients texting her and saying, hey, I saw that recommendation you made on the site, loved it, went and bought it. Thank you so much. And the way she describes it is that each time she got one of these texts, she just kind of saw the dollar sign that she was losing because she was not getting paid for that. And so along came Baxter, her now husband, an engineer by trade, and created this technology that allows us to connect content and commerce and allows influencers to quit their jobs and do what they love. We ran $1 billion worth of sales through the platform last year, and we'll do substantially more than that this year. It's an exciting time to be in this space. But it hasn't always been that way, and I thought I might take a second and just go through a little bit of the history of influencer marketing. I could go way back. Lots of people will say that kings and queens were the original influencers. But I'm just going to go back to kind of 1999, 2003 here with Ev Williams creating Blogger, which was really a way to democratize a form of media that was available to the masses. And that was a big push for Ev. He later went on to create Twitter. 2003, 2006, applications like Blogger, WordPress, AdSense create an opportunity for people to create their own content and slowly start to monetize it. And this just explodes. You end up with about 50 million blogs through 2003 to 2006. Did anybody blog during this time period? Anyone? Yep. Awesome. I did too. It was fun. I really enjoyed it. It was really a great way for me to share my travel stories and my experiences with my mom and dad, quite frankly, is kind of what that was for me. But as I used it more, I found that it was more challenging to write long-form content over and over. And so you started to see these microblogging platforms appear 2007, 2008, 2009. With companies like Instagram and Twitter and Tumblr, microblogging became really important, and lots of content moved into these closed platforms. 2011, just a little note, rewardStyle gets created and really creates an opportunity for monetization for these influencers. Over the next 3 years, though, through ad blocking technologies, which were putting a strain on the original model of advertising for monetization on the blogs, as well as moving into these closed social mobile platforms like Twitter and Instagram, the industry starts to change, and it becomes harder for people to do the things that they love and make money off of it. Which brings us to today. And products like to Know It and rewardStyle have created a new monetization opportunity for influencers, as I say, to quit their job and do what they love. So it's been a really exciting time. I keep saying influencers, and I asked you to think of who that was for you, but you might be curious as to who these people are. They are across an entire breadth of categories and industries, and they really spend a lot of time on what we just call lifestyle, which is they're cooler than you, and you want to see what they're up to. There are lots of platforms, Instagram, blogs, YouTube has gotten extremely popular. They might be across traditional magazines or digital magazines. Who are the people? Some of them are models, some of them are actresses, some are celebrities, B-list celebrities. Some are just like you and me, though, who talk about things that they love, and a small group of people on the internet connect with those things. As I mentioned, it's not just fashion, though, and beauty, which is, I think, where most of us think about this space today. If you look across the other categories that are leveraging influencer content on Instagram, is what this chart is here, You see 76% of auto leverage influencer content on Instagram, 61% consumer electronics. Across the board, across this group surveyed, 70% of them were using influencer content on Instagram. And these are all sorts of pieces. It's not just niche brands. These are the brands that are inside our platform. We have over 4,500 inside our space. But these are companies like Amazon and Walmart, and then down to HelloFresh and Net-a-Porter and eBay. All these companies are leveraging influencer marketing because that's what's happening in the consumer space. There's a desire from consumers to find influence and look for people who are like them, and then look for shopping that is close to that. We're changing the way that shopping is occurring. And it's a really interesting and exciting time. So that's what's going on in the consumer side and in the market. I hope you kind of get a sense of what is happening there. What I wanted to do was take a second and talk about what we can learn from that and how we can apply it to other forms of marketing, not just that may be occurring inside the influencer space. 3 big lessons I want you to take away here that you can use in any form of marketing, and I think this is really helpful for you, and I'll leverage some of our beautiful imagery from our influencers here to share this with you. First and foremost, and this is really the one that matters the most, is authenticity. Authenticity is key, and it's really what has allowed our influencers to be successful. They are amazing at building networks and engaging with their base. They have to continue to be true to who they are, though, in order for that to occur. If you're going to talk about this spaghetti sauce, you better be using this spaghetti sauce at home. Otherwise, consumers can see through that. They can see through recommendations versus advertising. And so it's really important that you continue to be true to who you are and that you put in the work. These people work hard. They make it look easy on Instagram, but they work their asses off. This couple here is Robbie and Sarah Tripp. Sarah's online handle is Sassy Red Lipstick. Some of you may know them from Robbie wrote a letter about how he loves her curves. I think that was on like the Today Show. I don't know if you saw that or not. I've had a chance to meet them a couple different times, and they are just outstanding people, just wonderful, wonderful people that I like spending time with. But as soon as I met them, I got back the next day, and Robbie had sent me a note on Instagram just saying how great it was to hang out. About a week later, he sends me another note, commenting on the Golden State Warriors. We talked about basketball. We talked for about 5 minutes. And this person paid attention to what we talked about and then followed up and put in the work to engage me so that we could continue to be part of the community that they've created. That's what has to happen in order to create that authenticity. You have to put in the work. Secondly, ROI continues to be critical. A lot of times in this space, I talk to brands and they say, well, we're not just going to throw money at someone to, have them make an Instagram post. Well, that's not how it works. rewardStyle and other companies have created an opportunity to connect content to commerce. So we have a platform that allows you to say, this particular post drove this many sales. And that is critical in our space, and it's critical across every marketing channel. You've got to have the proof that says that this return is there for you. Now, there are other reasons you might do it around brand, but if you're doing it for ROI, it's important to leverage advanced metrics that are available across most performance marketing areas. Secondly, it's got to be sustained. It's got to be something you continue to use and that you continue to do. Long-term relationships are a huge part of this, and they help generate sentiment. And sentiment is a really interesting opportunity for brands to see how a community feels about their network. So this up here in the top right, that's Francis Lee Baker. He's wearing a shirt from Express, which he loves, and he shared with everyone. And now, through the list of comments, we can see how his audience feels about Express. Are they positive about it? Are they like, oh, I don't like shopping there, sizes never fit, etc. This is a really great opportunity for brands not only to see the ROI, but to also see the levels of engagement and the sentiment that exists for their products. Third, and last, remain portable. As the space continues to evolve, our influencers are trendsetters. They are consistently looking for new opportunities to engage with their community, and that typically means new platforms and new technologies. They're the first to adopt Snapchat. They're the first to get off of Snapchat. They're the first to try all these different pieces, and so that means that they have to ensure that their content and their community moves across all of these platforms. And so they experiment over and over, and that's something I want to encourage you to do. Try out new platforms, try new technologies, and look at the qualitative feedback that comes out of those, not just the quantitative. Because as you explore and you look at new places, you're not going to see the quantitative measures that you would see in an established platform. And secondly, they're constantly leveraging technology to remain platform independent. Companies like rewardStyle offer this, but one of the most common ways, and I think the one that resonates with most people, is the concept of hashtags. Hashtags is a fairly portable technology piece across platforms. Almost every platform leverages hashtags, and when we post and when the Solstice team says it's hashtag Solstice FWD 18, they don't have to say on Twitter or on Instagram, right? So look for opportunities that allow you to remain portable across multiple technologies and leverage those new technologies to ensure that you have those in place. All right, those are your 3 lessons, right? I want you to make sure that you remain portable, that you leverage new technologies, and that you try out these new opportunities. What I want to do is take a second and comment on where this space is going, because I think it's kind of interesting relative to where the other channels are headed as well. Computer vision and AI, which James talked about this morning, actually a super scary talk from James this morning, if anybody got a chance to see that. Nice work. Computer vision and AI have allowed us to do some really interesting things. Inside Like to Know It, for example, you could take a screenshot of an image and then shop it inside our application. So we're able to recognize the content of that image and show you where to purchase those products. This is just a small example of the kind of things we'll be able to do in this space, and this is an area where you see it continue to evolve. Secondly, more and more micro-influencers, so smaller communities that will form around a particular person or a peer group will be extremely successful. In fact, accounts with 30,000 or fewer followers have a 60% higher engagement rate than those with higher followings. So don't get caught in the numbers of like how many people is this person following. Just focus on the fact that that community is extremely engaged around a particular piece. And find that community that fits for your brand or your product. Because it's there. I absolutely guarantee that it is there. And if you can tap into that group of people who are focused around that, you could be extremely successful. And lastly is new content types. So much of this space, so much of blogging, so much of Tumblr, so much of Twitter, so much of Instagram has been around photography for a very long time. But you're starting to see that change. And I think Snapchat really was one of the first to change the entire medium a little bit. Now you see Instagram stories. It's moving towards kind of moving visuals. I don't want to say video because we all tend to think of polished, controlled video. That's not necessarily where it's heading. It's more towards user-generated content and an opportunity for them to flex their creative muscles. And so I don't know if you saw yesterday, Instagram just announced Instagram TV as a competitor to YouTube. This space is all moving towards video or some form of moving photography, kind of creative content. It's a really interesting time. If you haven't tried it out, if you have Instagram, try out Instagram Stories. It's a pretty interesting way to get a sense of how this is, and this is where it's headed. So if you're not there, you need to start thinking about how to leverage these kinds of technologies because that is where it's going in this space. All right, I just want to leave you with a reminder that this is a really diverse space. One size does not fit all inside of this marketing space, whether it's for demand and you want to generate actual revenue, perhaps it's PR or brand, you want to leverage social content. There are lots of opportunities to leverage influencers to help drive your brand into new audiences and demonstrate ROI. Whether that's with a partner like rewardStyle or just on your own, I encourage all of you to do that. So when you think about this new content type, I want you to think back to that original person I asked you to remember. Who is that influencer for you? And recognize that it's truly a natural and authentically human way to create new content and to shop forward into the future. Thank you so much for all your time. I appreciate it.